I needed 2 weeks to review that.
Right.
I need 6 weeks to review Latin. I needed
Because
2
they're
weeks.
stories.
Because
They
they're
have a context.
stories. It's that narrative. They remember those stories. And so when they're young and we teach them stories, they really do hang on to that knowledge in a way they do not hang on to their math facts.
Welcome to Classical Etc. You're in the studio with Shane Saxon.
Welcome to another episode of Classical Etc. On today's episode, summer is here. We want to talk about what do classical educators do with their summer? And is there a good way to use your summer to prepare for next year? Before we get there, Martin, I have a question that you'll never guess. What have you been reading recently?
I had been kidding before the
There's
show
the
that he
laugh.
asked me that,
There's
and
the laugh.
we do this every show, and yet I always am reaching around for things. It's because I'm usually reading several books at a time. I actually just finished last night.
Wow,
Is that recent enough?
that's fresh.
It's fresh. Michael Connolly, who wrote the Bosch books, and then the Mickey Holler books, which are the legal thrillers. That Bosch is a policeman, Mickey Holler's a defense attorney, and I'll have to say there's language in there. There are inappropriate scenes, there are inappropriate scenes in some of the novels, not all of them. But if you're an adult reader and you understand the way the modern world is, they're very realistic. But his legal thrillers, gosh, they're good. I love a good court drama, and there are about 6 or 7 of the Mickey Holler books, and 4 or 5 of them are just absolutely riveting. You do not want to put them down. And it's nice to have a story like that. Probably some of the viewers think that, we just read classics all day and you just go home and Dante is by my bedside. But
you've also got such extra stories.
Yeah, you've got these other books that are not great literature, but they're good literature. And good literature is good.
And entertaining. Sometimes you need a brain break. And so it's nice to have, I kind of go back and forth between something that I feel is really, that I should read and something that I really want to read, like my British murder mysteries.
Yeah, and I think there's those stories. We just got finished taping one that did this, where you have to, a lot of great literature, you have to analyze. There's things underneath, and you got to point them out, and you got to uncover things. But I've said this before, there is something about just a straight good story, and that is valuable in and of itself, apart from any symbolic sense that it has. If it's a good story, then it's good.
I have an illustration for this. I was hanging out when I was working at a church briefly with a Christian rapper, professional musician.
Yes.
And we were sitting at lunch, and I was talking to him and asked him, "What music do you listen to?" And he said, "I don't really listen to music. That's work."
Oh.
And in my mind, I thought immediately, fraud. You're a guy who's good at rhyming. You are not a musician. Because if you're a musician, you would listen to music, lots and lots and lots of it. And I think we are all readers. We love reading. So it's like we don't just read the classics just to study them. We just read. That's what we love doing.
I was pondering your equation of rap with music.
I was getting there. Yeah. You just stay with me. Paul, what have you been reading?
A classic. This morning, since Martin finished the book last night, I finished this morning, East of Eden.
Oh, you did finish it?
I did finish it.
I bought it. I've got it.
It's so worth it. It is so worth it.
I thought, should I read that first or read Captain Blood first?
Oh, you'll finish Captain Blood in less
So I should
than a
read it
week.
first.
Yeah,
Because you're reading that in the Office reading group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Captain Blood by Sabatini.
Did you choose that?
No, I mean, I had just read it, and so we were tossing out ideas, and we just read Persuasion, and
Right.
and
In Austin.
people wanted in the group, they wanted something fun
Lighter for
and
summer.
lighter for summer. So and people were like, we've been talking a lot about Sabatini. I was like, that's a great one. And Michelle's been wanting to read Captain Blood. So
And
Okay,
there's your
and
segue.
Yeah,
I hope
there you go.
I hope you figure out in reading this, because I don't know if I'm going to be there or not. I hope you come to some conclusion about how does an author write a story about a pirate and the pirate's good.
well,
Oh, that sounds fun.
Dread Pirate Roberts.
I mean, yes, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I've read the book. I mean, it's.
I haven't.
How does Sabatini? There's 2 novels I've read of his on pirate stories, and somehow he manages it.
Yep.
Okay.
Tony, what about you?
I just finished A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. This is
good.
like the 3rd week that I've had to say that, but I am finished now.
Yeah. Did it hold up from your teenage years?
It did. It's still, it really.
A lot happens in 15 years.
Yes. 15, right. It is a coming of age novel, but it does have a lot. It's got a lot more than that. And I think her description of Brooklyn in the early 1900s, I think is just beautifully done. And this tree that grows regardless, you can cut it down and it comes back. It's one of those really obvious analogies that works, that, keeps coming up throughout the book. But it's definitely worth reading. I read it too young. And I would have been fascinated at the time with the infidelity and the woman that has had 10 babies and they've all died. Mm-hmm. So she pretends to be pregnant when she's really adopting a baby. I mean, just that kind of stuff appealed to my 14-year-old self. But this time I was able to get beyond those things. Mm. So I wouldn't recommend it for a young teenage girl. What was my mother thinking?
Yeah. And I mentioned last time that I saw them. I haven't read the book, but I saw the movie. My wife didn't like it because the father, she said, was just this ne'er-do-well.
He was. And he was a drunk.
Yes. And he kind of doesn't necessarily pay for his negligence, and that kind of thing bothers my wife. But one of the things about the movie, I assume it's the same as the book, is it does bring you to this other place in time.
She does a great job of that because it is autobiographical.
Yes.
What time period is this set in?
1901 is when she was born, and around 1912 is where the book picks up.
Back in those old times. And
in a tenement, and just being proud, though, by the end, being really proud of where she's from.
Yeah, there's something, I talked about the importance of a good story. That's one element of. The other is setting. And, there's some things I just, like a lot of old movies, which I love to watch because they do that. They bring you back to this other time in this other place. I just watched a movie with Clark Gable and Barbara Stanwyck, bringing you back to Hong Kong in the 1940s. There's this, it was exotic, it was adventurous, it was different. And there's something that's enchanted about those old places before we get all this technology. Now everything seems to be disenchanted. And these books and these movies, they bring you back to this time when there were still mysteries and there were still these exotic places. And even in the story, to me, the tenement in the inner city is an exotic place.
It absolutely.
And to be able to spend time, it's like a time machine. It's like space travel in a good sense.
And seeing World War I come and how that affects everybody.
I am mesmerized by any book or movie that can do that.
I feel like that was the best part of that book.
Yeah,
was the setting. Yeah. Yes.
So,
and I need to say, can I say one more thing?
Yes, of course.
So I had said I was starting a book by Kirk Russell. What am I trying to say?
Russell Kirk.
You mean Snake Plissken?
I've messed it up again. Okay. Last week, and I said it was Common Cause, and Martin said that's not right. But what neither one of us could think, it's called The American Cause.
Yeah.
So I need to correct myself. It is not the Common Cause. If anybody's out there looking for a book
you'll
by
be
Kirk
hearing
Russell.
from them, I'm sure.
So you have started reading this Russell Kirk book?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I've read it about.
I do look forward to hearing your take, honestly.
I have not started reading it because I've had to be reading articles for the new catalog,
mm-hmm.
and I'm still reading the Marcos book, and I have
a lot to read.
It is. And I'm more of I like one book at a time. I'm really a one book at a time person, but I can't get it done. So I just find myself going back and forth, and I don't like it.
Sure.
But it's my life.
I don't know if I mentioned this before because I've read about 5 or 6 of these now, but I recently found that on Kindle, excuse me, Martin, there are a series of free introductions to particular philosophers that are highly illustrated, but about 100 pages and really good.
So-and-so in 90 minutes or
something like that. Basically, it's like introducing and they're an illustrated guide. And so I read the Kierkegaard one. I did it right after, I found them right after reading Fear and Trembling. But then I read the Heidegger one, the Hegel one, Carl Jung, and then Aristotle and Plato. And I just finished Aristotle, and I'm finally kind of burnt out on them. I was just really obsessed for a minute and just read.
How old are these?
Recent.
Yeah, they're like 10 or 15 years old, I think. Yeah, they're still in print.
But interesting, really well done, I thought, and very helpful for getting kind of a survey of their thought and connecting them to each other. And so really enjoyed that. But this Friday, I'm leaving on vacation.
Where are you going?
We're going to Tawas, which is on Lake Huron. And my brother and sister-in-law own a cabin.
Oh.
So we're going to drop off our 1-year-old son with his grandparents on the way.
Really?
And I bought 3 books to read up there. And I look forward to.
What are you going to read?
Are you going to run them by us for our approval?
Yeah. So I hope that you approve. I'll have to return them before Friday.
That's right.
But have you all heard of the author Leif Enger?
Mm-hmm.
I have, but I don't know why.
So he's a novelist. He lives in rural Minnesota, and he writes these just like beautiful fictional stories. I've read his book Peace Like a River, but I picked up his book Virgil Wonder. And I'm looking forward
I know
to
I've
reading
seen that in a bookstore.
Yeah.
Okay, so we approve of that because it's fiction.
Thank goodness. And then one of my professors at seminary who I've been really impacted by is a guy named Dr. Jonathan Pennington.
Oh.
And
Have you read his book?
So I picked up his Jesus Philosopher book, and then he just released a book called Come and See.
I saw that.
And so I'm hoping to read all 3 of those while I'm up there.
Oh, so 2 Pennington and 1 fiction.
Yeah, that's about right for
I
my.
approve.
Yes.
It's my diet.
66% is a little.
So are you going to leave Jack for a week?
No, just 2.5 days.
Okay, so you won't get them all read.
That's right, and then we'll. I mean, the vacation's longer than that, but the time in the cabin where I will be completely
where you can
by
read.
myself.
He's going to spend time with his family, and then read 3 books in 2 days.
Yes, with a 1-year-old.
With a 1-year-old.
So speaking of vacation and summer, our topic today is there a classical education approach to summer? Sometimes I hear this. I'll be talking to people and they'll be like, we're going to be really intentional about how our school uses summer. What do you all think as experienced educators, as people thinking about advising homeschool families about how to approach their summer? What are the important things? What are the unimportant things? Do you have any reflections having parented and homeschooled, having led a school, advised families about using summer? Tanya, let's start with you.
Oh, I've got this idea about it based on what we do at school, which I think is a great idea, which is math flashcards, speed drills, just because kids forget math. It's really amazing. And Latin vocabulary, and reading good books. But every summer I had this intention that we were going to do these things. And every summer I failed because everybody got up when they wanted to. And it was just getting everybody together before they went and got in the backyard pool or we went to some kids movie that at 10 o'clock in the morning or, whatever, or if they had a play date with friends. And I would just truly just fell off I never succeeded. So I'm not really the person to give advice about what to do. So I've got this theory about what ought to happen, but I truly failed at that. When we got out of school, I needed a break. They needed a break. Maybe I should have taken a month and just said, I'm not. Instead, I just felt guilty all the time because I felt like we should be doing this. And then we never did. And then all of a sudden it's time for school to start. So maybe if I'd said, okay, we're going to start July 1st, but we're going to have the whole month of June off, maybe I could have succeeded, but I didn't. But I do think, I will say as a teacher, Latin and math are the 2 things. So one year I moved up with my class. I taught this class, 5th grade. Then I moved up and taught them in the 6th grade. And so we came into the 6th grade and they literally did not remember anything that I had taught them. And like I gave them, one of the things we used to do was give the students at the beginning of the year, we would give them their math final from the year before just to see what they really knew. And they all did awful on it. And I knew that they had aced it, and I knew that I had taught all of this stuff. And the same thing with Latin. I would come in and think, okay, I'm going to review 2nd form Latin before we start 3rd form. And it would be, it comes back quickly, but it takes a little bit. And I don't understand it. Why does it fall off? Why can we not retain those things without practice for 3 months? Paul, I don't have the answer.
I want to lean into that a little bit.
Paul might have the answer.
Yeah, talk about why like arithmetic and Latin specifically need to be drilled.
Resting.
Well, we'll get to rest.
We're going to rest. I have already said I rested all summer.
Well, I have my own reasons for talking about resting. Okay, but why arithmetic and math? Those are the 2 major cumulative subjects that we do. Mm-hmm. So if you lose if over 3 months you lose 6 months of knowledge, which would be probably more than likely, right? Because if you think of your school year as a 9-month long school year, whatever you learn in those first 3 months of the school year, you get 6 more months to practice that. That's going to really kind of enter your long-term memory. But everything after that is not really entering your long-term memory. And if you need to keep practicing that through the summer, otherwise you're going to lose it. So really, if you don't practice through the summer, you're basically learning 3 months worth of stuff every year. I'm just spouting statistics that I've just made up on the spot, but
that's how we do research on the show.
But you get the sentiment. They're cumulative, and so
you have to retain it.
You have to retain it, and otherwise, like when Tanya's talking about, the kids coming in and not having retained what they learned in Latin, she can't move on as a teacher, and so that not losing what you've learned. Number one, that's like the easiest thing to do, right? If you're going to do something, just retain what you've learned. Yeah. But if you don't do that, then you can't move forward. You have to spend a month at the beginning of the year catching up everything that you have forgotten.
But when I decided that I was teaching Famous Men of Greece, and we have that whole mythology review, and I had planned 6 weeks for that mythology review, and those kids remembered everything about those gods and goddesses from the 3rd grade. I needed 2 weeks to review that. Right. I needed 6 weeks to review Latin. I needed 2 weeks.
Stories.
Because they're stories. It's that narrative. They remember those stories. And so when they're young and we teach them stories, they really do hang on to that knowledge in a way they do not hang on to their math facts.
Martin, when you guys were homeschooling, did you do anything intentionally with your summers, or it was the summer
wouldn't know.
Just a natural?
Ask Joyce.
Martin, let me just restate the question. Will you make up some revision of your history that would be interesting for our audience that explains your summers?
What do you think Joyce did?
Yes, as the one who overseed everything that happened in the household during the school day. No, I think I think of the analogy of sleep here, where, when you go to sleep, your body, you're still breathing, your heart's still pumping, but it's very, very slowly. And then you wake up refreshed. So I think that what you need to do, particularly on those kinds of subjects like math and Latin, which involve discrete knowledge, I would just go to 1/5 speed, and I would get those cards out once a week, just go through them, and then stop and don't do it again till next week. I think that is very bad, because I remember a lot of that stuff from Latin and math, but that's because I'm an adult and there's so much of it behind me. Whereas a child that's new to them, that's the first thing that's going to go. So just go at a very, very slow speed and do just something once a week, just as a refresher, so that they're not coming into the fall completely blind.
It really will help them. If I failed at it, but my poor children suffered.
Yeah, but I do think rest is very important. My kids benefited from, putting their shorts on, barefooted, get a pail and their fishing rods,
just be free
and go down on the creek, and I don't see them for half a day. That's the childhood, you've got to experience those, and you've got to experience real life, particularly in this age with all this artificial computer stuff and all that. Get away from the computer, get outside, do stuff outside, investigate nature, get that done, because, go to the beach. Because later on in life, you're not going to have time for that stuff, and you're going to remember it fondly.
Paul, talk about rest.
Well, I wanted to bring up the analogy of seasonality on the farm.
Of course.
Of course. But no, it was very apparent to Sarah and I this winter where we did not get, so on the farm, winter's your rest time, right? And we really did not get that rest this year for a couple of different reasons. And what it made us do was, as we got into spring and we started looking at the summer, we said, what are the normal things we do in the summer, right? We get some pigs, we raise pigs, we do some meat chickens, there's certain things. And we just had to say, we are not going to do meat chickens this year because we didn't get our rest. And I thought that's an interesting parallel to draw to the academic pursuits, where if you don't get a good rest in the summer, you cannot accomplish as much as you otherwise would during the season of learning. And so that rest is very, very important. I mean, we were just going to be dragging. We could have gotten it done, but we would have hated it. And we just said, we just can't do it.
Did you not get your rest because of farm work or just other things going on, like your job?
It was other things like my job and,
right.
Just things that happen in the family and things that, home maintenance projects and things that just need to get done, that had to get done in a timely manner. And
so you didn't sit by the fireplace and read?
No, we had maybe 2 weeks of that, whereas normally we get like 3 months of it.
But I will say this, in praise of boredom, because I remember many times when I was growing up and it's summertime, and that's when you didn't have any technology other than a television set and there wasn't much on it. And you had to find things to do.
Oh, absolutely.
And if your friends were available, you'd go, do a pickup football game or play some basketball or do something like that. But there was a lot of time available and not enough things to do in it. So that's why we read, is because there was nothing else to do. Now there's too many other things to do. So we did actually read.
One summer I read 35 Agatha Christie novels.
Okay, don't do that.
That was my discovery of British literature. Mm-hmm. And I took it, and my parents
Kids
just kept letting me buy them because the library didn't have 35.
Yeah, but just some easy to read, not anything real involved, but something that you enjoy. You can sit out in the sun. You can, I'd read. We grew up near the beach, so we go to the beach all the time. So I'd just go down to the beach and take a book with me or something.
Let me come back to the really practical for a second. Then I want to zoom back out to the less practical. Does it change at all if you're? I'm thinking about kind of parenting or talking to schools as they're thinking through different grades. Does it change at all the age of the student and where they're at? That is, do the primary students need to do different things over the summer than the older students?
I mean, your primary students, the major things that they're learning, right, is reading, writing, and arithmetic. So we work very, very hard in the school year to work on the fine motor skills, right? The muscles to be able to hold that pencil for long periods of time. I mean, they need to at least continue to do that in some form or fashion.
Which we use the 100 Days of Summer reading for. And so they read a book. So they're continuing to practice their reading. And then they write the book title in their journal, maybe the author. And possibly that's all they write. But they could also write one sentence about the book, which then also, that is another skill, is helping them hone in on what the book was about, what they liked about the book, the important thing about the book. Something, it varies by family, what you can get done, and by child. So that is the reading and the writing. But then the primary student also should be practicing math flashcards. And that's all. That's really all the primary student.
The younger you get, the more review you need. I think as they get older, they don't need as much review. And hopefully by the time they're in high school, they will have developed some interests in certain kinds of books, and they will just voluntarily,
be reading,
doing some reading.
But they won't be voluntarily doing their Latin flashcards, at least not most of them.
Well,
No.
I'm talking about, that's what I mean, younger kids.
Yeah,
I do need that. Yeah. And that has to be just a part of a regimen.
But really for high school, I mean, you're no longer working on arithmetic.
Mhm.
So I think, and I don't really know, I think for high school, all we require is each class is assigned a novel to read.
Mm.
And we encourage them, obviously, to read. And we hope that we've turned them into readers, that's not, shouldn't even be an issue. But there is one novel that they read as a class that is their assignment. And our grammar school students, in addition to math flashcards and Latin, will read one of the Story of the World volumes, the one that's before, like if they're going to study Famous Men of Rome, they read the version of that in the summer. And that's really all.
Mm.
It's not a lot that we require, but it really is to help us get started better in the school year. And those are all things that even would be helpful for the homeschooler to do, because those homeschool parents are also seeing after a break, it's hard to kick it back in. And a lot of homeschool parents just are doing year-round school now
Right.
and taking shorter breaks because they recognize that you're going to lose less, and you're going to because we do lose time.
Yeah, I'm not.
You're not a
convinced of
fan?
that. No, well, I just think that it's a much shorter period of time in which you forget something. So if you're going to forget everything over the summer in 3 months, kids forget stuff in 2 weeks. So now you're having them forget things 3 times during the year if you have 3 different shorter vacations rather than the one long summer vacation.
I don't think so. I think
Or you
in a
could take
couple
multiple
weeks.
1 week vacations.
Maybe.
6 1 week
I
vacations.
think it's fine to do it either way. I think whatever
I guess I
works.
come from a generation where it was the great American summer.
I
You
know,
went on vacation,
and I love
you-
the summer. I
Yeah.
do love the summer. I
Mhm.
love having that long. Well, I used to. I don't get that long break anymore since I'm not teaching. But I did love it, and I
Mhm.
loved it for my children. But I do see advantages to having, because you get really tired.
Mm.
By now, everybody's really tired. And in February, we start hearing people say, "I don't know how am I going to get through the next 3 months." So if you took a couple weeks, it might help.
I think parents need a good long summer too.
Maybe we
Thanks
could
for
do what
defending
the
this,
Italians
parents.
do, and just everybody in the whole society takes off in August.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to take off in August.
All right, if anybody would like to start that movement, we'll be right there on board with you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and this is really just curiosity, my curiosity about you three. You all are kind of living the fruits of classical education in some ways. For your reading, personal growth, kind of thinking, does it change at all seasonally? Do you do something different in the summer? I mean, all of our work is tied to education, but we all work probably more in the summer than we do in the school year.
Which is why it changes.
Okay.
Because I get where in the summer, I am so tired. And so, the task list is so long that I would really struggle to read something heavy. I know in August, I will not be reading anything heavy because I will just be trying to keep my head above the water, and you will be too.
Right. She gave me War and Peace for Christmas, and we're not starting until this fall because
That's right.
we wanted to
We
whole
can't,
time to read
we
it.
can't do it.
Yeah.
We can't do it in the summer. We just, but
Well,
that's
my-
because of, that's a unique
Pretty unique.
problem that we have. But-
Whereas most teachers, the summer is a great time to actually get reading done that
On
they
your
wouldn't otherwise.
adult reading, right.
I had, there was one teacher in the online academy that she, for a couple of summers, she would update me on like where she'd gotten in Count of Monte Cristo. And then the school year would come and she'd say, I'm putting that down until next summer because I don't have time to, I was like, that's rough. But that was how she found her way of being able to
Wow.
get through those.
Mm.
Yeah, see, my schedule's reversed. I teach during the summer at
Mm.
Memoria College's summer courses. So I have one or 2 to 3 courses in the summer, which involve rereading a lot of things, and I try to read newer things pertaining to, the philosophy of classical education or classical pedagogy, and so I don't have as much time during the summer to read as I do the rest of the year.
But you now have, I just saw an e-blast, I think, for the new classical teacher certification.
Yeah.
So teachers can actually take these classes that you're teaching.
Right. They can take
and
these,
work toward a certification, which summer's the only time teachers can really get that done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They really don't have a lot of time during the school year. So that's
so
why
you're doing a service to teachers across the world.
Right. MemoriaCollege.org.
Let's end on this. One fad that I've been made aware of recently is summer bucket lists. And I don't think that you die at the end of the summer, ideally. I think it's just these are things that you put on a list that you try to do during the summer. What is one thing that you would recommend that someone who is deeply interested in classical education, that wants to use their summer in some small part to be better classically educated, that they should do? And let me start. I would say find your local Shakespeare in the Park.
Oh, yeah.
And really go in on a Shakespeare play, read it. What I always recommend is read a summary, read the play, watch a version of the play, then go to the performance. That is the best way to enjoy Shakespeare.
I agree.
What do you guys think?
I would say if you're really gung-ho, and we actually have a lot of adults that are gung-ho, we have in Memoria Academy a First Form Latin class. And so we had so many people sign up for the First Form Latin class that we were talking. I don't know what Mitchell decided on this, but we were talking about a second section of First Form Latin for adults.
So you're advertising something that could be full?
No, I think we're releasing.
So you got to sign up right now.
She was open to a second section. So, but again, when is a parent or a teacher going to have time to learn Latin during the school year? It's your moment.
Well, the other thing too is, of course, it's a time for travel. Go someplace interesting. Also,
how about Louisville? Come to our conference.
Oh, now there you go. That's an exciting thing, right?
Well,
there.
It is, and
it's
that would
food,
be
good company,
good, and yes,
got some
and
good
just
speakers. I hear
your peers, to be around your peers. I don't know about the speakers.
And the other thing is, we don't think of this like we used to. Museums and historical sites. Our historical sites are being neglected. People don't go to them like they used to. There's been a few that have closed or are having trouble. Go to these historical sites. There's so much interesting history that you can see right there. We've got a place, Locust Grove, over here, which is an old house that's been there since the early 1800s, and they've kept it up. And there's people there who are in character, and it's like this big farming estate.
Shaker Village.
Village, absolutely.
When Sarah and I went there, and there was this just phenomenal tour guide person in the church who would do the singing that they would have done. And it was powerful. It was amazing. And then their pigs got out, and people were running after the pigs and showing you how they gardened. And it was just phenomenal.
Have you ever read The Believers by Janice Holt Giles?
Yeah, it's about
You should read that since if you've been to Shakertown.
What's it about?
It's about the Shakers.
Yeah. Well, there's a Shaker Village. The first Shaker Village I went to was up in New Hampshire. there's different ones
But
around.
I think, we're in Kentucky, and I think the second largest one is the one in Kentucky, and the biggest one is up in the Northeast somewhere.
But yes, you can do your own local state things and get your state history done in a summer, and how your kids hopefully will have a better time than mine did when I did that.
Well,
but it's a great way not to spend a lot of money, because you can make day trips or just overnight trips and give your kids that education, but also just an experience.
Right. And just the ability to see that even the place where you live has a past. And we don't study history like we used to anymore. So you don't appreciate the heritage of things, and it's all around you. You just haven't noticed. And so there's usually somebody in your town or something who's really into that. They'll even take, you find out who it is. Go to the Chamber of Commerce and ask if you have to. We've got, I live in Danville, Kentucky, and Danville was the first capital of Kentucky. And
what?
Yes. And
you need to go visit Danville.
I didn't
Constitution
have
Square is there. Grayson's Tavern is still there. It has not changed. They keep it just like it was. That's where the Kentucky Articles were argued. during the constitutional debates there and at this other house that's still there in town. But they have a whole park there, Constitution Square Park, and it's gorgeous. There's all kinds of history there.
It's great. Everybody should just get out and enjoy their summer. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
That's right.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Classical Etc. If you enjoyed this conversation, please consider liking this video. If you want to join the conversation, then you can comment below. And if you want to stay connected, please subscribe to our channel. I hope you enjoyed this show, and we'll see you next time.